Love and commitment. Unconditional love. When I was around the age of 13, my father took me aside and told me something that would change my life. The two of us were alone in his beaten-up old car in a side street of one of the poorer suburbs of London. He turned to me and said this: "Son, whatever you do in your life, know this: the door of my house will always be open to you." I was only a young teenager at the time. I didn't really understand what he meant, but I knew it was something important, so I remembered it. My father would be dead 3 years later. When I became a monk in northeast Thailand, I thought over those words of my dad. Our home at that time was a small council flat in a poor part of London, not much of a house to open a door into. But then I realised this was not what my dad really meant. What was lying within my father's words, like a jewel wrapped in a cloth, was the most articulate expression of love that I know. "Son, whatever you do in your life, know this: the door of my heart will always be open to you." My father was offering unconditional love, no strings attached. I was his son, and that was enough. It was beautiful. It was real. He meant it. It takes courage and wisdom to say those words to another, to open the door of your heart to somebody else with no ifs. Perhaps we might think they would take advantage of us, but that's not how it works, not in my experience. When you are given that sort of love from another, it's like receiving the most precious of gifts. You treasure it, keep it close to your heart, lest it be lost. Even though at the time I only partially understood my dad's meaning, even so I wouldn't dare hurt such a man. If you give those words to someone close to you, if you really mean them, if they come from your heart, then that person will reach upwards, not downwards, to meet your love. Opening the door of your heart. Several centuries ago, 7 monks were in a cave in a jungle somewhere in Asia, meditating on the type of unconditional love I described in the previous story. There was the head monk, his brother, and his best friend. The 4th was the head monk's enemy. They just could not get along. The 5th monk in the group was a very old monk, so advanced in years that he was expected to die at any time. The 6th monk was sick, so ill in fact that he too could die at any time. And the last monk, the 7th, was the useless monk. He always snored when he was supposed to be meditating. He couldn't remember his chanting, and if he did, he would chant off-key. He couldn't even keep his robes on properly. But the others tolerated him and thanked him for teaching them patience. One day, a gang of bandits discovered the cave. It was so remote, so well hidden, that they wanted to take it over as their own base, so they decided to kill all the monks. The head monk, fortunately, was a very persuasive speaker. He managed, don't ask me how, to persuade the gang of bandits to let all the monks go, except one who would be killed as a warning to the other monks not to let anyone know the location of the cave. That was the best the head monk could do. The head monk was left alone for a few minutes to make the awful decision of who should be sacrificed so that the others could go free. When I tell this story in public, I pause here to ask my audience, well, who do you think the head monk chose? It stops some of my audience from going to sleep during my talk, and it wakes up the others who are already asleep. I remind them that there was the head monk, the brother, the best friend, the enemy, the old monk, and the sick monk, both close to death, and the useless monk. Who do you think he chose? Some then suggest the enemy. No, I say. His brother? Wrong. The useless monk always gets a mention. How uncharitable we are. Once I have had my bit of fun, I reveal the answer. The head monk was unable to choose. His love for his brother was exactly the same, no more and no less, than his love for his best friend, which was exactly the same as his love for his enemy, for the old monk, the sick monk, and even for the dear old useless monk. He had perfected the meaning of those words, "The door of my heart will always be open to you, whatever you do, whoever you are." The door of the head monk's heart was wide open to all, with unconditional, non-discriminating, free-flowing love. And most poignantly, his love for others was equal to his love for himself. The door of his heart was open to himself as well. That's why he couldn't choose between himself and the others. I remind the Judeo-Christians in my audience that their books say to love thy neighbour as thyself, not more than yourself and not less than yourself, but equal to yourself. It means to regard others as one would regard oneself, and oneself as one regards others. Why is it that most in my audience thought that the head monk would choose himself to die? Why is it, in our culture, that we are always sacrificing ourselves for others, and this is held to be good? Why is it that we are more demanding, critical, and punishing of ourselves than of anyone else? It is for one and the same reason. We have not yet learned how to love ourselves. If you find it difficult to say to another, "The door of my heart is open to you, whatever you do," then that difficulty is trifling compared with the difficulty you will face in saying to yourself, "Me, the one I've been so close to for as long as I can remember, myself. The door of my heart is open to me as well. All of me, no matter what I have done. Come in." That's what I mean by loving ourselves. It's called forgiveness. It's stepping free from the prison of guilt. It is being at peace with